Hi everybody, welcome and hope you're doing well. This is the counseling aspect of the Townsend Institute where all these right brain people with all these feelings and empathic abilities and attunement, you're all here. And we're going to have a really good time tonight. As you know how this goes, I've got content for you tonight. You should have a handout. And then I will answer questions and answer upstairs. Well, you don't know it's upstairs. It is upstairs here in the studio. And we'll do that for a bit. And by the way, those questions don't need to be about the content. They can be about anything. That's fine. Scott and I just designed this so that you would be served. And then we've got a great special tonight with Dr. Kurt Thompson. If you were at the kickoff last year, you know how phenomenal he is. Neuropsychiatrist and a great guy who understands the power of relationships in change. And then more Q&A, full night. So let's start with tonight. And the topic is drives. Now, drives is not a word you hear about a lot, but it's very valuable in the psychotherapeutic process because it explains some things that go on and explains what you can do about them. So let me start off with the key Bible passage because it relates so much to this. It's in 2 Timothy 1:7. It says, "For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline." Now, if you break that down into those three outcomes, power, love, self-discipline, it's really explanatory. Power is what we would call the aggressive drive, the ability to move things, push things, take initiative. Love is the libidinal drive, or the relational drive, which helps us to connect and make attachments and form attachments. And self-discipline really is the ability to integrate those two so that they're constructive and not destructive. So once again, God wins, and the Bible shows itself in so many ways as so helpful and foundational in the psychotherapy process. So our talk tonight, as you can see from the outline, I'm going to talk about the libidinal drive, I'm going to talk about the aggressive drive, and then how they integrate and foster structuralization, meaning character structure as you're teaching, as you're learning at the Institute, and then some interventions that are really helpful to know how do I use these in the session. So the libidinal drive. Well, the best way to understand the libidinal drive is, when you think about libido, there's kind of two ways that people use libido. One libido is if somebody's libido, if you're seeing a doctor and they're examining you, they say, well, how's your libido? They're talking about your sex drive, and that's certainly part of it. And that's an aspect, but it's not the whole thing. The basic idea behind the libidinal drive is the drive to attach, to form an attachment, to form a trusting, close, vulnerable, intimate relationship. And the libidinal drive, it starts at birth when the mother and the baby connect. The baby is all alone. The baby just come out of the womb and is terrified and frightened and confused and overwhelmed and is totally in amygdala. And the one thing that the baby sees, that she or he sees, is these eyes and this warmth and this person that's loving and puts her arms around the baby and says, you're safe. And that's the first libidinal connection that's made. It's our primary attachment. Some good things that are important to know about libidinal drive, and it's important to know this in general, is that the drive itself, it relates to our need for connection, meaning that the libidinal drive is there anyway. It's in the stuff. God made us with that piece of us, and you can't not have a libidinal drive, or you can have it damaged, of course, but you can't not have it. It's sort of like this force that looks out in the world and goes, is there anybody here for me? Is there a person who would love me, accept me? Is there anybody out here? And if you've ever felt any isolation or disconnection when you are apart and you feel like you don't have the skills, or you don't know anything, or don't know anybody, and you feel like they're all relating and I'm kind of standing here, you understand that it's that you're not making the attachment, but still you're feeling that drive, like it's uncomfortable that I don't have anywhere to express that drive. Lots and lots of things happen with the libidinal drive. It provides safety, like I mentioned, with the mother-baby bond. It also provides security. You know, this is where all that stuff about that we read about in attachment, about conflicted attachment and secure attachment and ambivalent attachment and all that stuff. It comes from the drive and how the drive is met in relationship, because the drive bringer is like a heat-seeking missile. It's looking for somebody to connect with. Well, it can connect with bad people. It can connect with good people. It can connect with people that are inconsistent, but the drive is still there. Also deals with sexuality, because that's part of connection, right? So, in a word, that's the libidinal part. Then over here is the aggressive drive. And the aggressive drive has to do with basically initiative. Taking initiative. You know, so much of life is about taking the first step. It could be a baby's first step in pushing away from mom and saying, you know, you're great, but, you know, dad's whiskers are kind of cool. Or I'm going to play with the dog instead of you. And the baby is pushing away from mom. And some moms have a hard time with this and say, oh, don't leave me. And we call them guilt-defying moms. That's not a good thing. Because the mom is supposed to say, look at that, you're walking away from me, that's great. And also anything like problem solving, using power, disagreeing, all that boundary stuff that comes from the aggression end of things. And aggression is sort of like this, they're kind of like parallel. They're happening at people at the same time. We're moving to connect, but we're also moving to experience choice, to experience power, to experience anger, those sorts of things. That comes from the aggressive drive. One's not bad and one's not good. Just like this, just like the libidinal drive is a heat-seeking missile to connect, this is a heat-seeking missile inside our heads that says, I want to express myself. I don't want to just be cuddled up all the time. I don't want to be in dependent relationships where I can not make any choices. I want to choose. I want to talk. I want to have a choice. I want to have values. Okay. So how do they integrate and foster structuralization? Well, here's the cool part of it, is that when these two get together, what happens, and I use the word on purpose, that they begin to integrate, meaning in healthy people, they are libidinal and they're also aggressive. By the way, let me just make sure the nomenclature is clear. Aggression doesn't mean hostility or rage or anything like that. Aggression gets such a bad name in our popular culture, and everybody says, well, you got to be assertive and not aggressive. Well, yeah, you don't want to be a mean person, but aggression is a pure drive that just says, go do something. You know, be active, and let's don't demonize a really good word. There's an aggressive person is not always a mean person at all. But what happens when these are put together, what you've got is love and you got choice. Isn't that wonderful? I love my spouse, I love the person I'm dating, I love my kids, I love my colleagues, I love my life team, but also I don't give up choice. And my greatest relationships are those where I feel fully connected by you, but at the same time, I could disagree and say, I want to do something different. I don't want to go eat Mexican food tonight. I want to eat Chinese food. Or we disagree about politics or religion or sports or whatever, and we still love each other. And integrated people, the ability to love is never compromised by aggression. In fact, it's helped. People that love well and are very aggressive are very, very healthy people. People that love and can't be aggressive, it's a problem. You know, there's a country song that talks about that. The title of the country song is, How Can I Miss You If You Won't Go Away? So when somebody loves and loves and loves and then they won't go away and they get kind of enmeshed, how do you miss somebody or long for somebody or have desire? That's why people get claustrophobic and want to pull out, because you've got to embrace choice. And that's how healthy relationships go. And the way that increases structuralization is because think of what it takes. Remember our 4 stages? We've got attachment, we've got separateness, we've got integration, and we've got adulthood, right? Well, it takes work to go from here to here, and here to here, and here to here. Guess what it takes? It takes a lot of work on attachment so that you're taking in the relational nutrients, you're taking in the 22 relational nutrients of empathy and wisdom and feedback and challenge and safety and validation, but you're also taking in, you're using actually the aggressive drive to make choices. So somebody wants to go, okay, I'm getting bonded here, I'm getting attached, but I want to learn separateness. Well, what have I got to do? I got to take in a bunch of people and learn that separateness is okay, and I'm not going to be beat up, and I'm not a bad person, and I can make choices. Ooh, boundaries. That's kind of scary, but it's pretty cool, right? That's taking in the libidinal part. But also, I got to make those choices. I got to be courageous. I got to say no. Oh my gosh, the scary word no, right? And as I do that, then I become a more separate person. I'm using both attachment and libidinal drives to put together my growth and structuralization. How do I get from separation into integration? The integration of negative realities and good and bad and all that. I've got to get attachment again because I've got to feel safe and secure that nobody's going to judge me if I screw up and if I don't do well and if I fail, but nobody's going to beat me up, and I don't have to worry about the perfectionism part over here. And what about the aggression? Well, I've got to take some risk. Got to tell people I'm not having a good day and I'm not okay today and I really messed up and I'm trying to learn from it, but it's very hard. And that's the aggressive part, taking the initiative to say these things. That moves us to integration. And then how do we use the drives to get from separation to adulthood? Same process. I've got to get all these people that don't believe that we're a child and they don't believe that we're an approval-seeking person who's insecure. They believe in our strength. They want to usher us into that last stage of adulthood. But I'm also got to take some risk here. And I've got to not only get these people in my tummy, but I've got to push. I had a client one time who was very strong as a business guy in my TLP program. Very, very strong in attachment. And he would take in people and he would just get it. And it feels so good to feel affirmed and loved. And they got him and he was very vulnerable. He was just a model of vulnerability. And he would come back next month, he hadn't solved any problems. His marriage was tanking and his job was tanking and all this stuff. And I said, what happened? He said, well, I take all these people in and then it just kind of comes out. And I said, I don't think you're using this drive enough. You're using the love, but you're not using the power to say, I'm going to put a bottom on that container of love, and I'm going to say, thanks, that was great that you spent 20 minutes with me, loving me, supporting me, validating me. I'm going to go kick butt now. So use this to be the fuel to make choices. Don't just go here, 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 whatever people that kind of go, well, my cup's leaky. Sometimes I'll say, maybe it is, maybe you got bad people, let's get you some good people. But people shouldn't be feeding that cup 24/7. You should be using this to create things for God and great sculpture and great businesses and great things. All right, let's talk about the therapeutic intervention process. First, remember, God is both. God is full of love and attachment and libidinal resources. God is love, this says in 1 John. But also, God does things and He chooses and He uses power to get things done on the aggressive level. So I say that because in the clinical setting, when you're sitting there with a client, you've got to be able to know you're not doing anything with them except helping them to restore to the image of God. That's the important thing. All right, let's talk a little bit about some of the problems that you'll see. There's the term, I like to use the word conflict because in the research it's very helpful. There is a thing called conflicted aggression. Conflicted aggression. And guess what? Yep, we're going binary here. There's a thing called conflicted, I'm running out of ink here. Conflicted attachment. All right? What's conflict mean? It means that I don't have full expression of these things. So people that have what we would call in our world, the clinical world, aggressive conflicts, it means they're always stuck into making decisions, they're ambivalent. Is this the right thing? Will they like me? I don't want to overwhelm people. I don't want to scare people off. I don't want to piss people off or whatever. And their aggression's conflicted. And it's very helpful in the clinical setting to say, as I talk to you, Sam, it seems like a lot of the patterns of the things that have gotten you stuck is you've got some conflicting aggression. What does that mean? And you say, what I mean by that is that you've got all these choices you could be making, and you don't want to rob banks or do bad things, but you want to do things and be full throttle with them, or at least medium throttle, and you kind of govern yourself, and you're always never trusting it. And you get to their fears, and you'll say, what could you be afraid of? A lot of times they'll say, I don't want people mad at me, or I don't want to, alienate people, or I don't want to hurt people, or whatever. Now you're getting into all that really good differentiation and boundary stuff, because aggression is tied so much in differentiation and boundaries. Then there are people who have conflicted attachment. God is so expressive in His love, and God is so vulnerable, and He just says, come here, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, I wish you would come to me like a hen does her chicks, but you would not. But He's always vulnerably expressing, saying, here's my love. And He takes big risk. People who have conflicted attachment, they don't trust, they're not sure if they want to trust, they're not sure it's good for them, and they have bad experiences with them. So when you say, I think you're conflicted, I probably wouldn't say conflicted libidinally, because then they go to, oh, this is sex, and it's really not. I would say you have conflicted attachment. That means something much more. In other words, you can't need fully, you can't trust fully. Hey, remember the TPRAT, remember? Townsend Personal Relational Assessment Tool. And the things that vulnerability the things that the bonding score brings, it brings vulnerability, it brings empathy, and really good things like that. The ability to draw other people out and to express one's needs and have relational needs. People that aren't good there are conflicted attachment. So, what do you do with these in a therapeutic setting? Well, you help them to use the other side to fix it. So Sam's got conflicted aggression. He can't make decisions. He's always checking himself. So you make sure that he's got people around him that are kind of quadrant 1, and they're very much for him, but also they're quadrant 4, and they're also pushing him at the same time. They're challenging him. So they say, I love you, I'm on your side. I love it that your heart's so big, but I see your concerns. I think you make good decisions. I want you to kind of jump off the pool a little bit and take a risk here. Take a risk in that relationship. Take a risk with that job or whatever. And that begins to bring the aggression out of conflict, because they're getting the safety that says, my strength doesn't destroy me. My strength doesn't destroy other people. How do you help somebody with conflicted attachment? Well, you use this over here. You use both, really, because you've got to have the people inside to say, trust is hard, and I want to be trustworthy for you. And, I want you to reach out more and be more vulnerable. And you want to push them towards taking risk also. You got to remember, some people that come in with conflicted attachment, they'll say, I just can't trust anybody. People aren't safe. And you've got to confront that. It's like, wait a minute, every time you drive down the freeway, I'm in SoCal, right? And there's a 5-lane freeway. Well, I trust those people going 75 miles an hour next to me, because if I didn't, I would just never get out of my house. You have to trust those people that you don't know, because you have to get out some way. So when people say, I don't trust anybody, kind of say, yes, you do. Every day you trust somebody or something. Let's talk about the people that you have a hard time trusting, but don't let them make those global statements. It kind of sets them back. I'll give you a story about this. I was working with a gal who had a lot of borderline traits, and in the borderline world, these two fought each other. Every time she felt love, she would regress to, mush. She would be nothing but needy, and her dependency came out, and she couldn't even function because the need were just overwhelming. Every time she felt the aggression, she felt alone. She was, working. She kind of like the people 9 to 5. This is working. The task is working, and the aggression is working, but they feel disconnected and checked out. But you put them in a relationship, at weekends and nights, and they fall in love, or they have family, and they just lose all their power. They were just split, right? And so we started working on that, and we found out that she'd had a mother who punished aggression and reinforced attachment. But yet when mom reinforced attachment, if my patient got too needy, the mom would say, you're just asking too much. Yet the mom was the one that reinforced this and made her that way. So she was in total conflict on both sides. So we began to work on that. And what we did in the process, as she began to understand, she was conflicted in both ways. Now, you can't work on both exactly at the same time. When in doubt, always work on attachment, because everything starts with attachment. So we began making it okay for her to be dependent. And we went through a dependent phase where she was paging a lot and all this, and calling a lot. And so we had to get through that, a lot of crises. But she started to realize that I was secure, and I wasn't perfect, but I was the good enough, therapist. And she began to slow down. She began to get stabilized. And then I began putting limits on that, I think we're going to have less times of paging and all this. And all of a sudden, when we did this, guess what happened? She discovered her split off energy, and she got another job. She started dating around. She started having difficult conversations with her family and this sort of thing, because we started here and went to here. The split off energy that gets in conflict came back to her. Some more things are bring yourself in as a personal nutrient. Remember the 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1 is be present. Quadrant 2 is convey the good. Quadrant 3 is deliver the info. And quadrant 4 is call to action. Obviously, people that are conflicted here need a lot of 1 and 2. People who are conflicted here need a lot of 3 and 4, but everybody needs everything. But use yourself and say, okay, it seems like what you need right now, because you feel so discouraged because, I don't know, something didn't happen for you at work and you feel like giving up. I'm here for you. And I believe that you're really smart and you're competent. And I also want to push you a little bit to try again. Now you're doing both, right? Remember the importance of mismatching here when you're working on this, that the power of the neurological neurological erasing with new emotional experiences is so helpful to develop these, that somebody can have a horrible experience from childhood trauma to something that happened yesterday, and you listen to it and you understand it and you're there with it, and then you give them that healthy, feedback, something like, yeah, it was horrible and you lost yourself and it was so miserable, and now you've been on a path to recovery and you're much stronger than that now, even though I do understand how devastating it was. Remember, you're pulling off that subjective memory, which was so shame-based and hopeless, and you're putting on a healthy, not a memory, not an objective memory, but a healthy emotional memory layered on top of the objective memory. You can't take memory away. The objective memory, bad things that happen. So look at it like a piece of sushi. Here's the rice. The rice is the objective memory, but the emotional affect, the emotional part of that memory is the fish on top of that. You can take that off, take that bad fish off, put a good piece of fish on there. And finally, realize that you don't ever polarize with the client and make everything all attachment and make everything all aggression. Sometimes therapists, that are really like the power part, they'll kind of go, well, it's all about choice, or it's all about you got to try harder, or it's all about, there's more in you. Well, they're kind of missing this part. And then you got the ones over here that are like, oh, you poor thing, nobody understands you. It must be hard to be you. Well, they regress people. So remember, the goal is that you want the person to be connected and autonomous. I'm going to say that again, connected and autonomous. I'm going to say that again, connected and autonomous. Make sure that both drives are operating and healing and healthy, and good things happen. All right, so that's our content, and I'm going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk about your questions in a few minutes. Okay.